Welcome to the SBI Podcast, offering CEOs, sales and marketing leaders ideas to make the number.
Welcome SBI Podcast listeners and video podcast viewers. My name is Drew Kieran, and I'm here with my co-host, Andrew Urtiaga. We are both principals at SBI, a sales and marketing consultancy dedicated to helping you make your number. This is the weekly SBI podcast, and its purpose is to share insights and information relative to your business. So today we're going to discuss sales training and the plethora of videos that are available on YouTube. Sales training is a $70 billion industry within the U.S. alone and over $130 billion globally. So organizations are reporting that they're spending almost $2,000 per employee on annual training. So if you're missing your sales number, is sales training the magic bullet? Before you answer that question, an interesting fact about both my co-host and I is we both spent quite a few years in the martial arts. I have 27 years, and my junior has 17 years. So what that means to you, our viewers, is if we can't agree on the topic, we'll settle it in a cage fight.
Yeah, and if you stick around a little bit later, I'll be using Drew as a punching bag. I don't believe that training is the magic bullet, Drew, just to answer the question.
So what you're saying is we're wasting $70 billion annually?
No, not necessarily. I think it has its place, but as a first priority or as a first approach, it's kind of like throwing mud at the wall, right?
Okay.
It's very tactical from this perspective.
Okay, so what are you talking about?
Well, why don't we put
down.
up a graphic? I think it'll help our viewers, and we'll walk our listeners through it as well.
Okay.
And the graph that we're showing really defines the difference between strategy and tactics and the correlation between both of them. Okay, so if you think about this 2x2 matrix, we have strategy across the top, and we define strategy as doing the right things. Okay. From tactics perspective, it's actually doing things right. Going back on strategy across the horizontal axis, you can have an effective strategy and you can have an ineffective strategy. Okay. On the tactics side, you can execute inefficiently or you can execute efficiently. So let's walk through each of the quadrants for our listeners and our viewers and kind of describe each one and see as they listen, if they want to plot themselves, that's another great way to kind of go through this.
Yeah, good idea.
On the upper left-hand corner, we have what we call dying fast, right? This is a poor plan executed brilliantly. And I think the definition is self-explanatory. Yep. Underneath that, going counterclockwise on the bottom left-hand corner is a poor plan executed poorly, which is die slowly. On the bottom right-hand corner, we have what we call survival. This is a brilliant plan that's executed poorly. And then in the upper right-hand corner, where more of our listeners and our audience wants to be, is thriving, which is a great plan executed brilliantly.
No, I couldn't agree more. A simple YouTube search returns a hit of over 700,000 videos in the sales training category, right? So it's everybody's looking for the quick fix, the quick hit to do this too. And some of them are really good out there. Don't get me wrong. I like some of them too. And when I was researching this, I kind of broke them down and put them into 3 buckets, right? So the first one's what I want to talk about first, and this is the motivational videos, right? I absolutely believe that these are very beneficial, right? So here's an awesome example. Why don't we have a quick listen?
I look at life and say there's 2 master lessons. One is there's the science of achievement, which almost everyone in this room has mastered to an amazing extent. That's how do you take the invisible and make it visible, right? How do you take what you dream about and make it happen, whether it be your business, your contribution to society, money, whatever it is for you, your body, your family. But the other lesson of life that is rarely mastered is the art of fulfillment. Because science is easy, right? We know the rules, you write the code, you follow those, and you get the result. Once you know the game, you just, you up the ante, don't you? But when it comes to fulfillment, that's an art. And the reason is it's about appreciation and it's about contribution.
So what we just saw, this is really more about individual learning experience, and it really shouldn't fall in the context of sales training. You know what this reminds me of? When a lot of people go to these motivational speaking engagements and, as soon as the thing's over, there's always like this burst of people. It's like cattle running to buy the CDs and the gimmicks and the tools of, how you're going to transform your life instantly, right? And everybody knows that what it takes to actually accomplish that is a behavioral change. So really these, to me, they have a place when, you're trying to get the team pumped up, but I think it's better served when it's aligned with something else, right? It's a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and I'd agree. I mean, the event-based training too as a whole has even less ability to impact as well, too. So when these are done in the large environment that you describe, it has even less of an impact, too. So where I think it fits in is if you and I were sitting at the airport and our flight's delayed and we're having a beer and you're talking about, sales rep to sales rep or sales manager, how do I fire up my team? I do stuff like that too. I think that's where that really comes into play. I think it's kind of how do I pour gasoline on this too? Not having it too. I don't see it as the overall training, but I think it's kind of like, hey, I'm a little bit down or I'm doing this. What do you do? And I think these guys are fantastic when you listen to some of them too.
Or I'm going to the gym or going for a run and I want to get pumped up. That has its place too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they are motivational. And you think about some of the statistics that they show out there and some of the things that they've done, controlling your own destiny, dominating your competition. They're absolutely awesome when it comes down to that format, right? But I do want to go into my next one. Let me just set this up for you. I'll set the stage.
Okay.
Who do you think the guys are that I want to give a roundhouse to the head?
Oh, I don't know. Is this like the Cheech and Chong, the gimmicky guys?
Oh my God. And they are all over the webpage. I mean, it is unbelievable. Before I go any further, let's have one quick listen to this.
Today I want to be talking about Know Your Close. Basically what we're talking about today is knowing the difference between your pitch and your close and knowing when to turn on that button that says I'm now in close mode, it's time to capture credit card numbers. As a key takeaway of this video, I want to say more than anything else is that you've got to have a scripted close and you've got to build an ask into that close. It's important that you have your close scripted out and you're asking the client to move forward with you and doing that in a number of different ways. Are you ready to move forward? Does that sound like something that's for you? So do we have a deal? All of these are closing questions that count as an ask and can move you forward.
Are you kidding me? Like, why are there even people watching this thing?
It's amazing. It's like they're taking the 1970 videos and repackaging it. I feel like it's the guys, come down to the stereo stand and get, 40% off. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But when you look at the amount of videos that are out there and they're talking about, here's how you're going to close, one call closes, and here's the absolute where you can get through a gatekeeper and everything else. It is so outdated and it's such a misleading waste of our audience's time. We need to direct them in the right place.
Yeah. And Drew, you talked about events-based training, which you and I believe is flawed. So why don't we take a quick short break and let our viewers know about some of the new offerings from SBI. And after the break, we'll explain why.
Great.
Do you have too many things to do and not enough time to do them? Is finding time to learn best practices almost impossible? The SBI podcast is your solution. Turn time spent exercising, commuting, and traveling into productive learning time with a subscription to the SBI podcast. SBI podcast listeners get unique insight into real-world sales and marketing issues through interviews with your industry peers every week. Find us on iTunes by searching for Sales Benchmark Index Podcast and subscribe today.
Welcome back. My name is Andrew Urtiaga, and I'm with my co-host Drew Kieran. Today we're discussing sales training and how tactics masquerading as a strategy just won't work. Before the break, we discussed tactics versus strategy, and we were just about to dive into event-based training. Drew, what is wrong with event-based training? You and I were both part of companies and went once a year to that at SKO. We love those things, right? You got to meet your peers from other parts of the country, back slaps, new products rolled out, new compensation aligned, had a little, couple beers afterwards. Great event. So what's wrong with that?
So if you're asking me what's wrong with that, so let me repack what you just said, right? What's wrong with pulling all the salespeople out of the field down to an event that's usually beach-oriented or someplace nice, right? Then putting them through 2 to 3 days of drinking from a fire hose, covering every possible topic we can. Oh, by the way, usually they roll out the comp plan during that, so nobody can think about anything else about how they're going to get paid after that, too. Yeah. And they're usually out to the bars till about 2 o'clock in the morning, right? And then we're going to hit them with sales training. What's wrong with it? In essence, nothing. I mean, it is part of big corporations. I think that SKOs can be done and done well and effectively too. What's wrong with it, though, specifically, is if you're expecting an uplift from sales training to come out of that, or if you think they're going to even remember anything from that as well too.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic. So you're bingo. I think the research shows, and you and I have reviewed it together, 88% of the people or percent of the attendants are going to forget what they even consumed or learned during that training, right? If they don't have a hangover. And then I think you mentioned this in an earlier episode, is that 2% actually will forget that they were even there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's amazing. Think about that. So 2% of the people will say that they don't even remember attending that too. So that all comes back to how you're driving adoption with coaching, which is part of your sales enablement on that as well too. So without coaching, sales training is absolutely worthless. Let's just get that one out on the table too. The reason I have such a problem with this though, is the sales training or sales training industry, is it's sold as a quick fix. So how many times have you heard a sales VP saying, well, I just need to spend a little dollars and get a guy to come in here and do a couple sessions and we're gonna get back on track, right? So having that quick fix mentality, that's what I really have the issue with.
Exactly. In fact, on a recent SBI TV episode, we had a leading expert discuss the 3 things he would do to get a lift in the sales organization. And 2 of the 3 centered around sales enablement, which training is a piece of that, right?
Yeah,
a key component
portion
of that. Let's give a listen to Joe Vitalone. He's the EVP and president of Mitel Networks. Joe has been involved in leading 5 companies to successful sale or IPO, and I think we all can consider him an expert.
Absolutely.
So my first question to you would be, if you are hired to get results quickly by a board and a CEO, and the goal here is to make money for all the shareholders, what do you do in the first 90 days?
First 90 days, I think I focus on the people first, making sure I've got the team that I want. Second thing probably would be my sales process, making sure that we had one sales process, not 5 or 7 or 10, and then that everybody on the team really understand the product inside and out and can present it back to me or my CEO or to a CEO of another company. Okay. So those 3 things, 3 Ps, people, process, and making sure we know the product.
So it's now tying sales enablement within the framework of the sales process. That's one component of a broader solution. In order for this to make sense, let's walk through the 6-step revenue growth methodology and how sales strategy fits into that methodology. First, you have market research. That's designed to have a deep understanding of the markets, the accounts, the buyers, and the users that you're going to focus your resources, time, and money, which leads into corporate strategy as the definition. How am I going to allocate people, money, and time towards the pursuit of profitable growth? Right. Once we determine the corporate strategy, the 3rd step is then our product strategy, which is actually the building and launching of products to solve the market problems that we've decided to allocate, once again, people, money, and time towards. And then the marketing strategy can be determined, which is creating demand for those products and services. Sales strategy, which is a few things we've hit on today, especially around training and sales process, is about turning that demand into revenue.
Right.
And then finally, the last step of the methodology is the talent strategy, which is who are the people that I need to be able to execute all those functional strategies in the marketplace.
Okay, now that makes sense. But before we continue, why don't we take a short break for our viewers and our listeners? When we return, we will discuss the sequencing of sales strategy as it relates to the other functions. And we'll also talk about the 1 bucket of sales training videos that have a place in corporate training environment.
Making your number is hard. Your problems are complex. Complex problems need complex solutions. Introducing the SBI Magazine. Read in-depth stories written by award-winning journalists about how your peers have overcome their problems to make the numbers. When you need more than a tweet, social post, or blog article, turn to the SBI Magazine. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com to subscribe.
Welcome back, everybody. My name is Drew Curran, and I'm with my co-host, Andrew Urtiaga. Today, we're discussing the sales training videos and their impact.
Yeah, so we discussed a couple things here. We discussed the motivational training that we both agreed might have its place.
I definitely think it does, but I think
circumstances.
From an individual standpoint, right, to help motivate a single person, not an organization.
Yeah, I guess. We might disagree there, because I think more motivational, and I'm going to go pump some weights.
Okay.
Not so much close the deal, because it has such a short attention span. And then, but you also talked about the gimmicky guys, and we both agree that those guys should be kicked right in the face.
Yeah, Bruce is coming back into life for that one.
And then, so what's the 3rd bucket you mentioned?
So the third bucket is when you take a look at this and you talk about going through this whole sales enablement and making it part of a broader strategy, a comprehensive solution to the overall problem, right? So why don't we take a listen to an excellent example right here.
Okay.
I'm delighted to have with me John Dugan. John is the intrepid sales detective, a writer and blogger on sales effectiveness. Welcome, John.
Thank you, John.
John, I've read a lot of your writings recently where you talk about sales methodology and the importance of it. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. Sales methodology, John, is predominantly focused on sales effectiveness. Now, within that, there are a variety of different things that you have to consider. Often it's mistaken for sales process. Process, of course, being the actual steps that you take. Methodology is much more geared around the structure, the strategy, and
The how.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And as a direct result, the actual performance that your sales staff go through and measure the sales objectives that they set by bringing back through that.
I agree. You need an entire sales strategy to complete the revenue growth value chain. So if you need help building a sales strategy, we outline a 5-step process in our 9th annual research report, which you can download at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016-report. The specific section that we're discussing can be found on page 155 of the report. So why don't we walk through it together, Drew?
Yeah, great idea.
The first step of the process is planning, which is develop sales and data plans that are going to help you make the number. The second step of the framework is engagement. This is defining the process in which the sales team is going to, and defines how the sales team is going to interact with their prospects and customers.
Yep.
Then you have the org, which is make sure the organizational structure is set up correctly so that you have the right people in the right roles to execute the strategy.
Sure.
Then execution, which I love this part. This is the actual doing the work, which is focusing on the areas of sales enablement, pipeline, and forecast management.
Right.
And then the last one is support. So this is helping the sales team be effective in perpetuity by supporting them and making them the internal organization easy to do business with.
Yeah, no, that was an awesome explanation. But one of the things I want to talk about is the sequencing, because that's actually the fifth link when you look at the revenue growth value chain, right? So you covered it a little bit earlier too, but it's important for them to understand the context, because sequencing is very important. So market research is definitely first, right? Then it flows into the corporate strategy.
Right.
Then that flows into product strategy, then the marketing strategy, then the sales strategy, and then finally the org to support that.
Gotcha.
The sequencing is critical.
Yeah, so you really need the whole enchilada,
Yeah.
not just bits and pieces of it.
It's got to
right?
be part of a comprehensive, complete strategy, end to end.
Okay, so why don't we take one more break, and when we come back, we will talk about executing the strategy.
Each day, you receive hundreds of emails, tons of text messages, countless telephone calls, and sit in too many meetings. How do you find ideas to make the number with all this noise? The SBI blog filters all this nonsense for you and presents only first-rate ideas to make the number. Simplify your life. Subscribe to one blog and read the best content. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com and subscribe today.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we talked about how the sales training is putting a masking tape on the crack of the Hoover Dam in hopes it will stop the leak. You have to address the entire revenue growth value chain to accelerate organic growth. So, Drew, anything you want to add here?
Well, yeah, why don't we tell our audience how do we put this into execution, right? So why don't we crack on here?
What did you just say?
Crack on? Well, I should have said crack on, mate. So I got to tell you, I stole that expression from one of my favorite clients. I had an opportunity to work with Perry Offer over this past year, too. Perry's the CEO of the Dialogue Group, and Perry appeared on a recent podcast, too. His efforts over the last 18 months have resulted in doubling the value of the company and driving profit up 300%. He discusses how he implemented and now he aligned all of the functional strategies around his corporate strategy after extensive market research. So why don't we have a quick listen to Perry?
So hold on, you went a little faster and I was trying to take notes. Give me those three big questions one more time.
What problem do we exist to solve? How good a job are we doing at that by comparison to the competition? And what are the 5 things we need to improve, do a better job on, starting right now in order that we can improve our competitive position.
Awesome. So transformation through simplification.
Simplification.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love it. Transformation through simplification.
Yeah.
But before we go here, we always end the show the same way. Are these training videos pretenders or contenders?
You know, I have to say split decision, right? And I'm not taking the easy way out. I do think the motivational ones have a place for the individual, right? They're good to listen to on the gym or whatever it might be too. The gimmick guys, I mean, you, me, Bruce, somebody's going to take a roundhouse to their head. I think we're all going to fight for that opportunity. That'll be the first fight, and the second one's going to who gets to give them that opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to punch you in the face to get to them first. But the gimmicky guys, I don't even think they make it to the ring. I think it's a clear knockout on the way to the ring.
Yeah, you're right. And the last group, too, I think, is, you know, when you look at the guys that are putting it as part of a whole process, sales enablement as part of the sales process and tying it all in, I definitely think there's a contender there.
Okay, so let's put this whole thing in a bow and help our audience. And if you want to make sure you get this right, get a copy of this year's SBI research report called How to Make Your Number in 2016. You can find that at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016-report. And if you feel you might not be in strategic alignment, you can have one of our experts lead you through a workshop which will detail how to do this. You can go to salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016-workshop and request a workshop with an expert.
Awesome. Hey, Andrew, once again, as always, thanks for going the rounds with me. I know our audience enjoyed it.
Always enjoy it myself.
Great. So I also want to thank you, our audience, for tuning in. This show has become very popular, and with its popularity comes the opportunity to discuss hot topics like this one today. So until next time, we wish you much success as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on SBI services, case studies, the SBI team and how we work, or to subscribe to our other offerings, please visit us at salesbenchmarkindex.com.